involved in choosing good preschool education. That is the education of your child up to the age of 5. I prefer to call it care. I find education's rather a frightening word when you're looking at a 2-year-old. I want to give you a few tips on how to get onto those elusive and often exclusive lists to encourage you to stay sane while you too become part of that great British obsession, education, education. I've been talking to some of you with your newborns, and it's hard to believe that those adorable little bundles will one day be school children. It's also likely that many of you out there are first-time parents particularly. This is the first you've had to do with education since leaving school yourself, and are probably thinking, why on earth do I have to think about it so early? Well, wait lists in good schools, particularly in central London, get very full very, very fast. It's so important to get it right. The child's experience in early years has a major impact on their future chances in life, and it sets them up for the pressures and challenges ahead. I think the social implications are absolutely immeasurable. They learn about friendship, they learn about structure, teamwork, taking the odd risk. And it's also an incredibly useful tool for the next stage of their learning, that is the pre-prep school stage. By having your child down early optimises your chance in getting into the school of your choice when the time comes. Now, with the euphoria of birth, it's so easy to think about things for your new baby. You often think about public schools, sometimes even university. But, oh, it's so easy to forget what comes before. And if you can be organised for nursery and pre-prep, it will really help you in getting it right. Of course, nursery education isn't compulsory. Keep them at home if that's what you so wish. There's no legal obligation to send them at all. But if you do decide on it, please do your homework carefully, not least because it's probably one of the single biggest investments that you'll ever make in your lives. So what are your options? Well, obviously it's the private schools that I'm concentrating on in an arena such as this, and also the ones I know something about in London. There are so many different types of nursery provision and many, many different types of nursery schools. Big ones, small ones, ones run by national corporations, tiny independent ones, who are part of a group, such as my own. And each one will offer you something different. But what meets your needs depends on what your family requirements are. There are different pedagogies, different philosophies, if you like. There's Montessori, there's Froebel, there's Steiner, there's Reggio Emilia, there's traditional kindergartens, there are open-air schools, there are even forest schools now. The list is absolutely endless. So do you choose? What do you choose? Do you choose playgroups, shorter hours and heavy parent involvement? Day nurseries, sometimes offering care from 7 in the morning till 7 in the evening, and taking from children from as young as 6 weeks old. Nursery units in state and independent schools, taking children from 3 years old. Or the private nurseries, either independently run or part of the group, taking children from 2.5 until 4 or 4.5. They offer full-time care or something called sessional care, which is either a morning place or an afternoon place. So it's an absolute minefield, isn't it? And the range of labels attached to preschool, particularly in the private sector, I don't know how on earth you choose. Don't worry, there is really something out there for your baby. So let's think about where you get the information from. Well, there's word of mouth. We all know about that one. You will have already probably been terrorised by your peers. You will have had endless conversations at dinner parties. They will have told you which are the best, which has a stunning new head, which probably has one that's past it. what you should avoid, what you haven't a hope of getting into. Basically, what's the trend of the moment? But a word of warning about trend, although it's useful, it's not necessarily right. And remember, if you choose to put your most precious possession into that trend's care, it's got to be right for you, absolutely spot on. I suppose alternative ways of finding out might be the Children's Information Service, hopefully as long as it's not axed by the cuts. It should be able to furnish you with a long list of what's available in your area and is run by your local council. Educational advisors, placement agencies, consultants, some like Bonus McFarlane, Marina Dawson-Damer are here today and can certainly help you select. There's Ofsted. You can search the Ofsted Outstanding Providers list, gives you a good indication. School websites, I suppose, too, you could use, but be careful here. Whilst they're obviously good, they are a PR tool for the school, and they'll be wanting to tell you things that they want you to hear, so do look further. Contact the schools themselves. What are they like when you telephone? Do they get back to you? Are they friendly? Are they very informative? As I've said before, everyone is different. And to make life even more complicated, everyone has a different application process. So do ring round the schools you're interested in and ask what theirs is. And this will give you a good chance to see how they come across. Ask questions, possibly not lots of questions, not too many, but do ask how their application process works. May you register? Do they have a pack, a form, whatever? How soon should you register? When should you visit? It's never too early to start the process, but registering before birth, and yes, there are a few, mercifully only a few, who do take registrations before birth, is, in my opinion, unnecessary and really tempting fate, but only my opinion. So draw up a short list and then do some additional research. That's the time to look at the website if they've got one. That's the time to read their Ofsted or ISI report and see what questions you want to ask when you do visit. Of course, seek the counsel of your peers again. Mind you, by that time you ought to have a thing or two to tell them yourself. Just a word about Ofsted. Ofsted is the regulatory body with which we are all nurseries and pre-nurseries and nursery schools that have got to be registered. That is except, and I asked a colleague of mine about this earlier, unless it's a prep school, a nursery that's connected with a prep school that is with something called ISA or IAPS, in which case they will have an ISI inspection. But happily, that's not your problem or mine. Apply, get the forms filled in, get them returned. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Register for more than one, 2 or 3, possibly 4. And unfortunately do expect to pay a non-returnable registration fee. Read the terms and conditions, so important. And there's absolutely no getting away from it. The earlier you apply, the more chance you have of having a choice to make when the time comes. You won't just have to take whatever is on offer. Possibly not as keen as a father I had at the door of the nursery school one day, who, when I opened the door, was there standing, waving one of our registration forms, saying, "Am I too late? Am I too late?" And rather nervously, I said, well, what age is your child? And, I don't know, thinking, well, it's bound to be 2.5, 3, and I'm going to have to say, frightfully sorry, we're full. And he looked at his watch and he said, 1 hour and 46 seconds. It was, he did get a place. Very sweet, a very keen father. Ask when you can visit. Again, all different. Some schools will ask you to visit on application. Some will only allow you to visit if they have a space to offer you. Actually, I discourage people visiting too early because you're only coming to terms with your new baby. Ideally, I think between the age, about 6 months 8 months is a perfect, and it's also just when you're beginning to understand the process a little bit more. However, one thing's desperately important: please, please never ever take a place or choose a school as a school you have not seen. You just can never take that risk. So what should you look for when you're choosing a school? I suppose if I'd had £1 for every time I've been asked that question, I'd be a very rich lady. You want somewhere where your child is happy, somewhere they're safe, cared for. So somewhere that you feel confidently delivers that. The bottom line, I suppose, is your gut feel, your instinct. As soon as you go into a school, you'll get a feel. You'll feel comfortable with the atmosphere. You'll click with the head. It's terribly important to share a few philosophies. You don't have to share all of them, but it's terribly important that somebody who's going to be in charge of your child actually thinks partway along the same line as you do. You might just like the school when you go into it. In some cases, you absolutely love it. Go with that feel. It absolutely will be right. Recommendations are terrific. The Ofsted report is really important, but unless you feel really comfortable when you're in there, it will not work. Ofsted reports, I may be strung up for this. They're a great guideline, but they are not the be-all and end-all. And don't use them purely as the way of telling if you think a school is good. I suppose an Ofsted inspection is really down to what happens on that visit on that day. And if the inspector is feeling gloomy, bad-tempered, or you are having an extraordinarily difficult day at the school, in my experience, it does not always reflect the environment. Use them by all means, but only as part of the process. Once inside, what should you look for? Well, very important, the person in charge, the head. I always say nursery schools are only as good as the people who run them. It's terribly important to have somebody you are utterly confident with. Are they easy with their staff? More importantly, are they easy with the children? Are they hands-on? Are they comfortable? Do they really love children and their job? Is there a happy buzz of children's voices? Happy children learn. Happy children will want to come to school. Actually, on that note, we had one little girl who used to come and try the door every Saturday morning to make sure that we really were shut. She thought she was being fobbed off with her parents. And as they lived rather a long way, her father was really not best pleased. Maddening for them. Huge compliment for us, and very, very sweet. Anyway, I digress. Look at the building. Is it well kept? Is it safe? Is it secure? Is there some outside space or somewhere nearby that they use regularly? In London, we know this is outside space is at an absolute premium. But you do need it, least of all because it's a requirement of the early years foundation stage that we will practice. Are the children happy? Are they smiling? Are they welcoming? Do the staff get really involved with them? Can you imagine your child there? You may want to ask a few things as you go around. Things like, what's the staff turnover like? What qualifications do the staff have? In recent years, there's been an enormous emphasis placed on improving the qualifications of the early years workforce, and rightly so. It's a very, very responsible job to have. All staff must and will be CRB checked. This is a vital statutory requirement and is there to protect all. Does the provision follow a specific philosophy? If so, what is it? What do the children do? What do the children learn while they're there? How involved are the parents? Parents as partners is a big thing in early years. And you'll want to know what your opportunities there are for you to share with your child's learning and what input you can have in that. How does the school feel about bilingual children? If English is not your home language, is it something that they are used to dealing with? We have a huge number of children who speak 2, 3, 4 languages, and it's so important that, in my view, it's something that should be encouraged 100%. It's a terrific bonus for everybody. So you've registered. Now what? Be sure to record your interest. If the school knows you like them, they will make every effort to help you. Can I just also remind you that if you do send the forms back, that does not necessarily guarantee you a place. It guarantees you a place on the wait lists, but you'd need confirmation from the school that you have that place. So just because they say thank you very much for your £50 registration fee does not necessarily mean that you're on that list. It's a mistake that people often make, and one that's often not clear in brochures and prospectuses. So record your interest. A personal letter works really well. An email is very good. The offer of a villa in Spain is not a great idea. The Bribery Act is in. Then comes the wait for the offer, the long wait. In the part of London that I work in, the independent schools offer places approximately 1 year prior to entry. So we gather all the information, we put everybody down on our wait list, and then we allocate places after that. We try to coordinate the letters going out so you all hear at around about the same time. This is a new initiative that we're trying. It's not been 100% successful yet, but we will try on. Again, every single place is different. And be sure to ask when you're visiting how that individual setting operates their offer lists. Some schools will offer places on application, others hold very long wait lists, and then it's just a waiting game. Do check in from time to time. Reiterate your interest in schools you really like, but don't hassle. A call every so often or a note is absolutely great. A telephone call every single morning is a complete pain. If you're offered an afternoon place, if you've chosen sessional care, that's either a morning or an afternoon place, and they only offer you an afternoon place, don't panic. Children cope very well with afternoon school, and often the best nursery schools only have afternoon places to offer. And I feel very strongly that it's so much more important to get the right school rather than the right time of day. We're all conditioned to going to school in the morning. Actually, it works very well. And the children who've been to afternoon school and just come to afternoon school having had their normal morning routine cope very well with the prep school stage, because they used to have been going on the go all day. They give up naps and things way earlier than children who go to morning school, as a general rule of thumb. Again, do remember to send back all the paperwork that you're required to on time, and don't forget, if you change address, have another baby, to let the schools know. So many times we send out offer letters and then we get somebody ringing up saying, oh, well, have we got a place? And we say, well, we sent you a letter X number of months ago. They said, oh gosh, well, we've moved 4 times since then. If we don't know, we can't send the letter to the right place. And it's a really big hiccup when the time comes. A few brief points about nursery school and the start. All nursery schools and nursery provision follows the early years, what's called the early years foundation stage. We consider every child to be unique and different, and we plan according to that child's ability. The EYFS is only a framework. It's a framework on which to base your practice, and how much to the letter it's followed is absolutely dependent on choice, and different philosophies do it in different ways. Every single person interprets it in their own way. It's one of the joys of being independent. It's also a very good system. It's very comprehensive and very clear. Mind you, by the time you've been teaching as long as I have, you've been round the latest system at least 5 times and back again. And I've learnt over the years that each one has its advantages and has its disadvantages. And being able to pick and choose from the things that have been successful over the years has allowed me to make a very, very firm foundation on which children can learn. Change is good. It keeps you on your toes as long as it doesn't happen too often. The DFES says that when parents choose early years provision for their child, they want somewhere that their child can stay safe, somewhere where there are people who will help them, and somewhere that their child can thrive. In my opinion, happiness is the key. Happy children learn. Happy children thrive. They look forward to new and exciting experience. They enjoy their friends, be they peers or adults. Many of my children often go home saying their best friend is their teacher. They learn to really love school. So, so important. And finally, before you start, prepare yourselves as well as your toddler for what's to come. The start is so much more traumatic for you. Leaving them for the first time is very, very difficult. But do rest assured that the separation process over the years has become so much better handled. It's much more carefully handled than it was years ago. And if you trust the school you've chosen, it will be that much easier. Actually, for the children, it's not so hard. After all, who wouldn't, after a bit of pressure, be quite happy to spend time in a giant playroom? And we certainly get more tears when the children go home than when they arrive. Mind you, that's only the children. The mothers are a different thing. If your child has occasionally been left with someone other than you or a regular carer, you as the parents or a regular carer, they'll get used to the idea of you always coming back to them. And it'll make the transition into being left at nursery school that much easier. And a word of warning, do try to resist the temptation to ask them about what it was like, what have they done. Don't ask too many questions they clam. I don't know what they do, but they do not like to tell you. So be very subtle in your approach. I suppose if you think about it, all the time we spend with our children, we're always saying, don't go with strangers, don't talk to strangers, sort of strangers this, strangers that. And then the day comes from a nursery school, and you say, go with a nice lady. Tricky, very confusing. Don't feel that you have to arrive at school with your child counting to 50. They don't need to know their alphabet. They don't need to be able to colour inside the lines. This will all happen at their appropriate developmental age. And if there are any concerns during that time, they certainly should be picked out and flagged up to you. However, do please take every opportunity you can to speak with them. Speak with them. Listen to them. Listen to what they're trying to tell you. Praise them. Ask them questions. Explore. Discover together. But most of all, just try to enjoy and look forward to that special day when they begin to make that journey from babyhood to adulthood. So to summarise, do your homework, ring the schools, get the application forms, register for the ones you like, visit if you can, make your decisions, keep your fingers crossed, and help the process by staying in touch. I wish you every good luck with that journey, and I'll be very happy to take any questions that you may have. I'm here all day today and tomorrow, and can be found usually at the Alpha Plus stand, which is just down at the bottom there. Thank you very much for listening.
Jane, thank you very much indeed. It struck me I can see the infectious nature and enthusiasm of your role, which is great, and I think that is a marker. But I'd also put a plea in for the sort of endangered species of the male. Part of my job that I used to do was registrar in schools, and it's the mums that actually come and see you and make the decisions and so on. And nothing is better than actually seeing the husband or the partner as well. This always goes down extremely well at all schools, and I'm sure it does at
Absolutely.
your
I love
school as well.
I love seeing the entire family, actually.
Good.
Son, daughter as well.
Questions from the floor, please. Thank you.
How late is too late to get started? It's very intimidating.
It very much depends. Obviously, the highly popular schools do get booked up very early, but we quite often have dropouts right at the last minute, and suddenly, just the very nature of the demographics of where we are today means that there's a terrific amount of movement all the time. So don't ever think that you haven't got any hope at all. If you can get them registered by the age of 6 months at 1 or 2 places, it's terrific. If you've completely forgotten about it and they're about to turn 2 next week, ring up. Something may happen. I took a child recently, 2 days before school began, and a terrific success. They literally just arrived in London, and we were able to put that together. So don't worry too much. It's really to give you the opportunity of choice when the time comes, rather than just saying that nursery school's got a place, that'll do.
Thank you very much. Question over here, the lady. No, right. Lady in the front.
I have 2 questions actually.
Yes.
First of all, are there any difference between nurseries and nursery schools in normal, and the second is, what is your recommendation about the bilingual children?
Okay. The first one, nurseries and nursery schools. By nurseries, I think of that as day nurseries. The difference is that the children are there for a great deal longer, and nursery schools, there is probably more emphasis on nursery education. Nurseries provide all-day care. You can sometimes drop them off at breakfast and pick them up. They work very well for working parents who use it as an alternative very often to a nanny. But nursery schools are more specific, and very often you'll find that nursery schools are connected to a specific pre-prep school. They I don't like to use the word train up, but they encourage the children to be at the standard that pre-prep school may require them to be when they go. Not all pre-prep schools test. I'm rather appalled by the idea of having to test children at the age of 3.5, because I don't really know what you're looking for. But non-selective, there are a lot of non-selective schools, and sometimes they have schools that they may be part of a group of schools, and it's just worth asking about that. Bilingual children, well, I'm very, very pro children learning 2 languages. I think in this day and age, it's going to almost be a requirement for the next stage of for the first stage of their adult lives. People worry that the children will be slower if they're brought up learning 2 languages. I think in many ways the children are faster because they've actually learnt those 2 languages. That's an enormous amount for a child to take on board. They may be slower getting words out and the sentences coming out and the way they speak, but developmentally they won't be behind. They just won't be possibly combining. They may be combining words from one language and another language. You may think they're muddled. Actually, they're not at all. I'm really pro it. Don't ever not do it. And if your languages at home are two that aren't English, don't worry about that either. Children learn English by being surrounded by English at schools very, very easily. We have children who speak 3 languages. They'll speak English to me, they'll speak German to another, they'll speak French, Italian, whatever, to another person, and they switch like this as they are actually speaking to you. It's fascinating and wonderful to see.
Is there a question at the back? The lady in white and then the black.
Welcome to the Independent School Show. Up in the parent breakout.
What about if you're moving into London from abroad with a child at the ages of, say, between 3 and 5?
Mm-hmm.
And in particular, if you're moving in from a system who doesn't teach letters and numbers at this age, before 6?
If they're going into nursery education, don't worry, because that's our job, and we will get them up to, or we certainly should get them up to the age that the required standard by the time they go off to pre-prep. If they're going into pre-prep, consult the individual schools and see what they require. I know that different countries have different methods. We teach numbers and letters way too early, and it is difficult for them to begin with when they start pre-prep, but it's not impossible. So ask what is required and try and just ease it in by doing a little yourself. The moving at that stage is very difficult. Again, as I was saying to the gentleman over there, do ring round. What happens is that when your baby is born, everybody registers at every single school. You might sort of say, oh, I'm going to register here, 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 here. Now, at 2.5, they could only go to one of those, can't they? So everything shuffles around, and that's when places sometimes become available. Don't ever give up. Be persistent. If you really want a school, keep on at them. Because what will happen is when one of those gaps appears, they will think, oh my goodness, we've done our wait lists, who should we go to? And people who are very keen will pop out into your mind, and you'll think, oh, I'll just give them a ring and see if they've found anything.
Good, thank you. The lady in black there, there's the microphone to your left. Thank you.
I was wondering if there's any flexibility on the age that the children start school, or whether it's fixed, and also your thoughts on twins.
There are no, as I said before, there's no requirement about nursery school, so it is entirely up to you as to when you want them to start. Whether the nursery school will agree with you is always a different matter. It very much depends on space. Sometimes children are just not developmentally ready to start at 2.5 and are much happier starting at 3. Sometimes children are well over and are happy starting at 2. It very much depends on the individual school as to how much flexibility they will give. Twins, fantastic. If you're a tiny nursery school, as I had many years ago, I had triplets, which did rather fill the school. We had terrific fun with it. It's very nice with twins if they can. They have the benefit of being together, but the school also treats them. I think they need to be treated as individuals, and that the school is aware of that and can actually. They don't always have to do everything together. To be very aware of that.
Indeed, the psychology of twins is more than interesting.
Something else, yes.
Thank
Fascinating.
you. Lady in green there.
Sorry, this must be an obvious question, but would you summarize, please, the advantages of a nursery school versus the home education?
I think nursery. I think it's the social side that is so important at this stage. I think that the children go into. Certainly in London, they go into the next stage schools, into really quite pressurised environments. And if they've had a gentle introduction to that, they've learnt about even sort of basic things like sitting and listening to a story in a group, learning to listen, take turns, share in a group. It makes life at the next stage much more easy for them. I suppose I usually say to parents that 99% of my job with the children is preparing them for that next stage, looking at them and seeing what can we do to help. I am not against home education at all. I think in some cases it works very, very well. But I think the children going into quite pressurised private schools do benefit from having that social side. It is not, though, the learning side. It's not the numbers, the letters, all that side of thing. That can be done anywhere.
Good, thank you. Question from the front, from the gentleman.
Just to confirm, the nursery is still age 4. That's the
Nursery school is usually from 2 to 2.5 until 4.5 to 5. They usually work a 2-year program, and although some will take them earlier and some will keep them later, there are some 3-year programs around.
Right, and after that, the pre-prep
Then
begins.
the pre-prep kicks in, or primary school. That is when you send children. That's when they reach compulsory school age, and they must go into full-time primary education.
Right. So, assuming that there is a sort of selection procedure at pre-prep level, do you think the nursery schools actually prepare for that?
It very much depends on the nursery school. I would certainly, I would make sure that I was aware of which school every single child was trying to get into and work it accordingly. There's no hard and fast rule as to what they're looking for when they do go for these assessments. Some they just go into a play situation, some they do much more. And I think it's very much something the nursery heads need to be aware of. And by having very firm links with the next stage schools, with their feeder schools, if you have a very, very open if you really make sure that you really get on with them, it makes a huge difference. And you can just ring up and say, what do you need? You can ring up and say, look, this little boy, he's only just got over chicken pox. No wonder he, didn't really feel like doing what you wanted him to do. It really eases the situation. So yes, you should. The nursery head should take responsibility for preparation, certainly. That is not to say they will necessarily get in, but they certainly ought to do all they can do to help.
Yeah, and in that relation, then now coming back to the bilingual part of it, do you think if the sort of pre-prep selection procedure is at the age of 4.5, then 2 to 4.5, i.e. 2.5 years, is that sufficient for sort of English? Because I'm presuming that all the selection...
Absolutely, and if the English is not at that level, be sure to tell the school they're not going to get in just because their English may not be at a level. That's not what you're looking at. You're looking at how they fit in as a group, how they may go about something. Are they independent? Will they saunter off from you and have a little potter in a corner and, which to us is taking a risk. So it's not just language that you're looking at, so don't worry too much about it.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
And just one question, I think my wife had about difference between Montessori...
No, we just want to understand the Montessori system. The Montessori system.
Montessori system. Georgina Hood is your girl. She has the stand down there. I have a traditional nursery school, and the Montessori system is very different, a different philosophy to the way I work. Do go and ask her, because she will explain it far better than I can. It works extremely well. Again, if it's the right environment for the child to be in, if it's a happy place, whatever system you use will be right. There are very few pure Montessori systems going. Yep.
Hello? Fine. 2 more questions, 2 final questions, one from the lady at the back and one from you. So.
Okay, just want to find out about the age issue. For instance, children born after September.
June, July, August birthdays, do you mean?
Yeah, so
yes.
no, I'm concerned about the late starters. So the October, November, Decembers. Can they
Yes.
meet up in independent school?
Some schools take them in what we call the summer term. That's from April prior to their third birthday. Some get them to start at the age of 3. They will go into a school system which runs from September to August, so they will always, right the way through their education, be at the high end. They will always be the eldest in their class, just like the June, July, August birthdays will always be the youngest in their class.
So they're never going to have the opportunity to catch up by going to an independent school?
It wouldn't make any difference, no.
Any more questions from the floor? In which case, Jane, on behalf of us all, thank you very much for sharing, and I mean this as a compliment, 35 years worth of educational experience. And I'm sure Jane would be happy to answer some individual and private questions afterwards.
Absolutely.
If anybody would like to.
Very happy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.